Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 14, 2017 NFL predictions. Well, last week for the Fanatic, it was a good week overall. Not as strong of results as I would like to have had, but still, both against the spread and straight up, I had winning records this week. I went 8-7-1 against the spread, which equals to 53%, and straight up I went 11-5, which equals to about 69%. And now overall for the year, I am 95-90-6 against the spread, and straight up I am now 129-63. You know, pretty good year overall. I wish my against the spread record would go up. I'm happy I got to at least above 500 again for the second straight year so far. But this was right about the percentage I had last year at the end of the year with my against the spread picks. So I hope in these last four weeks here I can pull through with good enough against the spread to get up to about maybe 53-54% pushing it, but just a little bit more than that, barely above average, barely above passing rate against the spread. And straight up, I'm happy with the 67%. That's probably one of my highest so far. If I can string together really 3 or 4 really good weeks, I get that 68 to 70% range, which for a lot of guys and gals that do this kind of thing with picking, that's a really phenomenal mark to get straight up in terms of games. So now I want to tell you guys all my picks for this week against the spread and straight up. Sorry, a little lapse there. Alright, so on Thursday, when the 9-3 New Orleans Saints go to the 7-5 Atlanta Falcons, the New Orleans Saints are 1-point favorites in this game. I like the New Orleans Saints here -1, and New Orleans straight up. And then the next game, when the 3-9 Indianapolis Colts go to the 6-6 Buffalo Bills, this game is a pick'em game against the spread. And with that being said, I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills here against the spread in a pick'em, and the Buffalo Bills straight up. And then the next game, when the 10-2 Minnesota Vikings go to the 8-4 Carolina Panthers, the Minnesota Vikings are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Minnesota here -3, and Minnesota straight up. And then the next game, when the 3-9 Chicago Bears go to the 5-7 Cincinnati Bengals, the Cincinnati Bengals are 5.5-point favorites in this game. I like Chicago here +5.5, but I'll take the Cincinnati Bengals straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-6 Green Bay Packers go to the 0-12 Cleveland Browns, the Green Bay Packers are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Green Bay here -3, and Green Bay straight up. The next game, when the 2-10 San Francisco 49ers go to the 4-8 Houston Texans, the Houston Texans are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I like San Francisco here +2.5, and I like the San Francisco 49ers straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-6 Oakland Raiders go to the 6-6 Kansas City Chiefs, the Oakland Raiders are 4-point underdogs in this game. I like Oakland here +4, and I'm going to take the Oakland Raiders here straight up. Next game, when the 6-6 Dallas Cowboys go to the 2-10 New York Giants, the Dallas Cowboys are 4-point favorites in this game. I like Dallas here -4, and Dallas straight up. And then the next game, when the 6-6 Detroit Lions go to the 4-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this game is a pick'em game as well, and I'm going to take the Detroit Lions against the spread here, and Detroit Lions straight up. Then the next game, when the 8-4 Tennessee Titans go to the 5-7 Arizona Cardinals, the Tennessee Titans are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Tennessee here -3, and Tennessee straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-7 New York Jets go to the 3-9 Denver Broncos, this is another pick'em game, and this is very surprising to have 3 pick'em games against the spread in 1 week. That's very bizarre, but I'm going to take the New York Jets here against the spread on the pick'em, and the New York Jets straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-7 Washington Redskins go to the 6-6 Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers are 6-point favorites in this game. I like the Los Angeles Chargers here -6, and the LA Chargers straight up. Then the next game, when the 10-2 Philadelphia Eagles go to the 9-3 LA Rams, The LA Rams are 2-point favorites in this game. I like the LA Rams here -2, and the LA Rams straight up. And then in the next game, when the 8-4 Seattle Seahawks go to the 8-4 Jacksonville Jaguars, the Jacksonville Jaguars are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Seattle here +3, and I like Seattle straight up. And then the Sunday night game, when the 7-5 Baltimore Ravens go to the 10-2 Pittsburgh Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 5-point favorites in this game. I like Baltimore here +5, but I'll take the Pittsburgh Steelers straight up. And then in the Monday night game, when the 10-2 New England Patriots go to the 4-8 Miami Dolphins, the 5-7 Miami Dolphins, the New England Patriots are 11-point favorites in this game. I like New England here -11, and New England straight up. Alright, so time for my thoughts on each game. The New Orleans Saints over the Atlanta Falcons. This is a game where the New Orleans Saints right now have been one of the biggest surprises in the NFL all year long. Nobody thought this Saints team was going to be a playoff team. Nobody thought this team would, nobody thought this team could be a Super Bowl contender. Definitely not a playoff team. And a lot of people didn't even think they would be a winning or average football team. But they've proved everybody wrong. They have one of the more consistent offenses in the NFL, which is a lot more ground-based with, I would say, one of the best duos, if not the best duo running backs in the NFL right now, in Mark Ingram and rookie sensation Alvin Kamara, who has scored 7 TDs in the last 4 or 5 games. He's been absolutely sensational. And Drew Brees is still putting up great numbers since Week 8. He's at a 109 QB rating. He's not going to get the MVP because he doesn't have all those pure numbers of how he's managing the game. He has that comeback against the Washington Redskins on his resume this year. He is a underrated MVP candidate. Well, he's done with the Saints this year. And that Saint defense, they didn't have Marshawn Lattimore on Sunday. It did not matter. They were able to pretty much dominate the Panthers. They got a couple huge turnovers in special teams, which turned the tide of the game. And the Saints are for real. And a legitimate team. And when you look at Atlanta, let's say Atlanta has the pieces. They have the Vic Beasleys, the Grady Jarretts, the Deion Jones, the Brian Pooles, the Keanu Neals, the Robert Alfords. They have the Courtney Upshaws. They have a solid defensive front and an all-time explosive offense with Jones, Sanu, Gabriel, Freeman, and Coleman. One of the better offensive lines with Mack and Levitri and, he won't play, Jake Matthews. They have all those assets going for them, and yet they host the Vikings and are not even able to put up a touchdown. And Matt Bryant missed his first home field goal and only his second field goal overall in a huge game, which that could have made a huge difference in the outcome of the game. I know they didn't have Trufant, and they should get Trufant back, but the Saints are going to get Marshawn Lattimore back as well. This is something where I would have taken Atlanta if they would have won the game against the Vikings at home, but they didn't. They were thoroughly beaten. The Vikings offense was able to run enough to give Case Keenum a decent passing game, and Case Keenum still continues to play well for the Vikings. And I think if Case Keenum can do that with the weapons he has, Drew Brees can definitely put up the same effort or a little bit better with the weapons he has offensively. And the one aspect is also, if you look at Atlanta's home field advantage this year, it's not there. Their biggest home victory was really against Green Bay. Remember, this was a team that blew a 10-point lead against Buffalo in Week 4, and then they blew a 17-point lead against Miami, and they just didn't even score a touchdown against the Vikings at home on Sunday against the Vikings. So this Falcons team isn't really as good at home as you thought it would be in the brand new stadium with the motivation. And I just think the Saints, they're going to take that confidence, take that momentum, and roll it into a good-fought, solid victory for them over the Falcons to really take a firm and total control of the NFC South. So that's why I like New Orleans here -1 and New Orleans straight up. The next game, the Bills over the Colts. This is really hard because when I look at this game, you have two teams here that are really not fighting for that much now anyway. I think with what happened with the Bills, with Rob Gronkowski taking out Tre'Davious White, and he got suspended 1 game because of that, I am fine with that suspension. But for people saying that Rob Gronkowski deserved to be suspended more games. I would just like to point out that Kiko Alonso concussed Joe Flacco, and he only got fined. Jalen Ramsey and AJ Green went on, AJ Green literally tried to choke out Jalen Ramsey. No suspension. So people that are saying that Gronk deserves more games, look at some of the other incidents in the NFL and don't try that, okay? Gronk got suspended one game. Was that a warrant of punishment? I agree so. But did he deserve more? Absolutely not. That was just that was a cheap shot, just like other cheap shots. And when you compare it to Ramsey and Green, that's not nearly as bad. I hope White's okay, but all those people that are saying, "Oh yeah, Gronk deserved 2 to 4 games," stop. No, he got the 1-game suspension. It'll be like Sendejo when he concussed Mike Wallace. It'll be in a meaningless game against the Dolphins, and we'll move on for that. But to get back to the Bills, Tre'Davious White went down. Tyrod Taylor has a knee contusion, and he might not play, which means that they'll go back to 5-pick Nathan Peterman. LaShawn McCoy had a decent game, but this Bills team right now is just stumbling into the home stretch. And after all the optimism the Bills had, including me, after they had a 5-3 record, it's all falling apart, and it's all falling apart to where the Bills are going to finish like the Bills. The Colts aren't that much better. They've had their moments, but they got absolutely dominated by Jacksonville once again. They won, even though I do want to congratulate Frank Gore for going into passing to 5th all-time in rushing yards, surpassing LT and Jerome Bettis in his game. That was probably the only bright spot for the Colts the whole game and the whole weekend. And even if Tyrod can't play, Nathan Peterman can't play as bad against the Colts secondary. That Colts secondary let Blake Bortles throw for 300 yards. And Blake Bortles is having one of the better years of his career, but Nathan Peterman can play well enough. They can run the ball effectively on the ground. And if Peterman could just, not make 5 interceptions or not make every throw he makes interceptions, I think if Tyrod or Peterman plays, the Bills have enough talent and enough drive to hold ground at home against the Colts team that's just really not that good. It's not really, Indy's fault because their, big quarterback's gone, but the talent they have, they just shouldn't be able to beat a Bills team, which is a little more disciplined, more loaded, and have a really good home field advantage for the most part against sub-500 teams. So that's why I like Buffalo here, and I pick them, and Buffalo straight up. The next game, the Vikings over Carolina. I'm taking the Minnesota Vikings here because this is another example of the Panthers running into a more consistent, solid team. Cam Newton for another game at under 200 yards. I think that's 3 of the last 4 games he's had under 200 yards. Fortunately for him, he's been able to have a decent running game, and his defense bail him out. On Sunday, they really the running game got shut down, and the defense couldn't stop threes after the Panthers' special teams basically committed the 2 huge turnovers. And I just think with the Vikings, you have the most consistent defense in the NFL. It's loaded from every spot in all 3 levels. You have Case Keenum, who's playing way over his head, and I would put him in the top 5, top 6 in MVP conversation for how well he's playing. He still has to deal with Teddy Bridgewater in the background, and Mike Zimmer only committed to starting Case Keenum just for this week. But I just think, again, when you look at the Vikings, they can run the ball consistently. They have Thielen, Diggs, and Rudolph. 2 solid receivers. Thielen's really separating himself from Diggs this year. And then you have Kyle Rudolph, who's a decent tight end. And hopefully maybe they get Mike Remmers back on the offensive line. That can help, strengthen their offensive line at full health. And they will continue to play well. Do I think the Panthers have a chance in this game? Yeah, I do. I think if Greg Olsen can come back, which would be huge, that could help. But just of how the Vikings are playing, the last time the Vikings played Carolina, Cam Newton got sacked 8 times. I think he's not going to get sacked 8 times, but I do think the Vikings can get 2 to 4 sacks on him. That will cause enough havoc in the pocket to see Cam make more mistakes, which the Vikings will capitalize on giving the ball back to their offense or turnovers, which will be the difference in the game. I'm really excited for this game because you got 2 solid defenses, 2 decent quarterbacks. One has a better resume, even though the other one right now for this year is playing much better than Cam Newton. But I'm going to take the Vikings, the better defense, healthier squad, and just more consistent football. Besides, you could say New England and Philadelphia, the most consistent team in the NFL besides those two are the Minnesota Vikings, because every week you get the same thing out of the Vikings, which gets them victories. So that's why Minnesota here -3 and Minnesota straight up. The next game, the Chicago Bears over the Bengals. I'm sorry, the Cincinnati Bengals over the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears against the spread. The Bengals are in a spot where they have shown more fight, they have more offensive firepower, they have more experience, and a decent enough defense to play well against the limited Bears team. The Bears have actually played pretty well with their talent around them, and that's with basically no wide receivers. Leonard Floyd has been put on the IR. Other Chicago Bears players have had their ups and downs. Mike Glennon getting cut. Zach Miller having that big hip injury. But the problem with the Bears, and you've seen this about 3 or 4 times this year, they just can't close games. And I feel like with how the Bengals are feeling, this game is kind of one of those meaningless games where both teams are really not in good. The Bears are eliminated from the playoffs, and the Bengals essentially are the same way. I just think, again, the Bengals, they're at home, they feel motivated, and this is just more of a talent argument. A.J. Green's better than every one of their wide receivers. Brandon LaFell could do decent enough damage. They have a solid offensive line build up. Giovanni Bernard can run effectively enough and go in the backfield to cause the Bears defense to play them respectfully. And I just don't trust the Bears in close games to be able to find a way to win them or tie them in tough spots. But at the same time, with the injuries to Joe Mixon and Vontaze Burfict last night, I'm taking the Bears because I could feel like, again, either Randy Bullock has to make a game-winning field goal, even though the Bears signed Mike Nugent today and put Cairo Santos back on the IR. But I'm just going to take the Bengals here because I trust the talent and they're at home. This is a talent and home argument against the Bears team that has shown flashes of consistency, has shown flashes of competitiveness. Tariq Cohen's been an absolute phenomenal 4th-round pick that is going to be a great duo with Jordan Howard for years to come. But at the end of the day, I got to trust the talent of the Bengals. Dalton will overpower Trubisky, and I just don't think Trubisky and this Bears offense can make enough plays against the Bengals defense, which has done a really good job for about 70% of the game against the Steelers until Le'Veon Bell ran up the sideline 35 yards and got only touched by one person. But yeah, I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals here because I believe in their talent. They have more talent right now than the Bears, and I just will take that with the home field advantage over a Bear team that is a close competitive team, but not very good. So that's why I like Chicago here plus 5.5, but Cincinnati straight up. The next game, the Packers over Cleveland. The Green Bay Packers, look, Jamal Williams has done an absolutely phenomenal job. He had over 130 yards and a touchdown on Sunday against Tampa Bay. Dean Lowry had his first touchdown when he picked 6 Winston with a crucial turnover, which changed the game. And I think with that, this was one of those things where this is probably Cleveland's best chance to win a football game all year, is against this Packer team with Brent Hundley on offense. Brent Hundley had 81 yards passing and a pick and was able to win this game in overtime. And I had for Aaron Jones to be back too. He had a huge 20-yard run, which sealed the win in overtime. I'm just going to take the Packers because it's the Browns. Like, the Packers have shown if they could beat Tampa Bay, they most certainly could beat the Cleveland Browns. I do want to say one quick thing about Josh Gordon. I'm happy he's back. He played pretty well for a guy that hadn't played in over 2 years, and he had one of the better catches of the year at the sideline in one of his first few plays as a Brown against the Chargers in a long time. Would I be surprised if Cleveland won this game? I would be a little surprised, but not much, because I think Cleveland, look, Hugh Jackson's probably not going to keep his job at the end of the year, but unlike Ben McAdoo, Hugh Jackson gets effort out of his team. I don't think the talent's there with the effort to power them to a victory. And I think this will be the same thing that happens in Green Bay. And until Cleveland wins, it's just better and a smarter pick to just go against them at this point. So that's why I like Green Bay here, -3, and Green Bay straight up. The next game, San Francisco over the Texans. this is a game due to the quarterback. Tom Savage has more talent. He has a better offensive line. He has a better running game. He has a better all-time wide receiver. And he has some decent assets on defense. But at the end of the day, they're going up against Jimmy Garoppolo in his second career start. And for Jimmy Garoppolo to get that game-winning field goal by Robbie Gould was a huge confidence booster. And I saw something out of Jimmy that even though he did not play flawless football, I saw enough of potential out of him that against the Houston team that is showing kind of the same effort to Bill O'Brien, even though they've suffered a lot more injuries with the Whitney Mercilesses, the Dante Foremans, the J.J. Watts, the Deshaun Watsons, the C.J. Fedorowicz's that's been out for a while, even though I think he came back last week and played. I just have to take the Packers here because this is just that old adage of, I have to take the Niners here because I trust Jimmy Garoppolo over Tom Savage. But I'd be surprised if Savage won, not really, because Houston has more talent, and they want to, kind of show the Niners that Jimmy Garoppolo isn't maybe as great as they think, and he's not, young Tom Brady. He may look like young Tom Brady, but he's not Tom Brady in terms of a young Tom Brady in skill. But with that being said, I think Jimmy Garoppolo on his own, or just off his own reputation, will be able to make enough plays with this Niners offense to beat out Tom Savage in another heartbreaking, tough kind of loss for this Houston team that's gone through a lot this year. So that's why I like San Francisco here plus 2.5, and San Francisco straight up. Next game, Oakland over the Chiefs. This is just because I can't trust the Chiefs. This is something where the Kansas City Chiefs, after starting out 5-0, have lost 6 of their last 7. They had a 5-game lead in the AFC West, and they've blown it, and now the Raiders and Chiefs are right on their tails, and they play the Raiders and Chargers in their next 2 games at home against in Kansas City. I'm going to take the Oakland Raiders here because I know that, Cooper didn't play, and he could still be dealing with concussion and ankle syndromes, but they are going to get Michael Crabtree back, and I just think the Raiders have some momentum. They've won, 3 straight games, or 2 of their last 3. They know they're in this division, and they beat this Chief team just in week 6 a little while ago. So they know how to play this Chief team well. They have the confidence of themselves getting, quality or tough, gritty wins, which the Raiders love. I think they'll be able to pull off an upset in Kansas City. If Buffalo could do it, definitely Oakland could. And, that's sad that your only home, the only other win was against Denver, but Denver's really not a good team anyway. They're a dead horse walking, if you will. But, yeah, I'm going to take Oakland here. I just can't trust Kansas City. They're probably going to start Alex Smith, and I'm kind of torn between this. Because I thought Alex Smith, if he would have lost this game, would have deserved to have gotten benched by Andy Reid. But Alex Smith put up a career day, over 400 yards and 3 or 4 TDs. So you really can't argue if Philly's going for this week. But if he does horrible this week, well, mark my words, the Oakland Raiders will make the Kansas City Chiefs will make a switch, and Patrick Mahomes will start out the final 3 games of the year. So that's why I like Oakland here, plus 4, and Oakland straight up. The next game, Dallas over the Giants. This is something where, for the Dallas Cowboys, they're going to get Sean Lee back. They found a decent running game going, and they have all their offensive line healthy right now so far. I just think, again, with how the Cowboys dominated them in Dallas, I think they can do the same thing to the Giants this time around. The only biggest difference, though, is Eli Manning is playing this week to start his 211th game out of 213 games. I'm really upset about this. Because first of all, though, I'm happy Ben McAdoo and Jerry Reese got fired. I thought Ben McAdoo could have maybe won 3 or 4 games to defend his job. But after all the decisions I've seen and after all the backlash he's gotten, he's openly deserved it, in my opinion. But I'm going to take, even though he deserves the criticism, and I don't think Jerry Reese should have been fired until the end of the year, and Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, is now the interim coach for the New York Giants. I'm going to take Dallas here, though, because you have Dallas having their offensive line intact. Sean Lee is going to come back, and I think Dak Prescott will be able to outplay Eli Manning and put up better numbers that are more Dak Prescott numbers instead of barely surviving on game manager type numbers, especially after on Thursday when the team won the game by over 20 points, but he only completed half his passes for 1 or 2 yards. So that's really bad, and I hope that Dak, can fix that, because they only have really one more game to go against the Raider team that's basically in the same boat they are. But I'm going to take the Cowboys here, just because I think the Giants, they'll be happy to see Eli, but they're going to realize again that Eli Manning, at the very least, deserved to have one final drive instead of 4, meaningless games, which mean nothing to the New York Giant fan base. So that's why I like Dallas here -4 and Dallas straight up. Detroit over Tampa. This all comes down to Stafford and Rudock. I think Matt Stafford will play. If Matt Stafford plays, they win. If Jake Rudock plays, I'll have to hope that Jake Rudock can pull off a miracle, or Jameis Winston screws up 1 or 2 many times, and the Lions win that way. I would not be surprised if Tampa won this game at all, but I'm just going to trust that Matt Stafford will be back with his hand bandaged up or wearing a glove, and he can play and play well to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to drop them to 4-9. What a massive disappointment the Buccaneers were this year. Next game, Titans over Arizona. This is just going to be one of those Tennessee games, which they've done all year. Play good football through the first half, but then keep the Cardinals hanging around. And maybe the Cardinals get a big run to start the half, and they get a touchdown. But then in the end, the Titans realize we are the Titans, and they'll play well enough to eke out another win against the Arizona Cardinals and get them to 9-4 in their first winning season since 2008 or 2009. So kudos to them. And that's the thing, like Arizona, they could beat Jacksonville off a miracle, but then they play the Rams the next week and they look absolutely awful. So, with that inconsistency, I'm going to take the Titans. But I'd be surprised if Arizona won. Absolutely not. Because if Jacksonville could do it, Tennessee's basically the mirror copy of Jacksonville. They will do it. But that's why I like Tennessee here -3 and Tennessee straight up. The next game, the Jets over the Broncos. The Broncos have lost 8 straight, their longest streak since 1950. And here is the biggest reason why the Jets will win. They have Josh McCown, who's a competent quarterback. I know the Broncos' defense is better. I know the Broncos have a stronger running game. The offensive lines are about to push. And the Broncos have, big-name wide receivers. We don't. But we've played well enough as the Jets to be a respectable 5-7 football team. And this win by Todd Bowles and the Jets basically solidifies him as the long-term coach of this football team. And when you look at what Todd Bowles is doing with Josh McCown, Robbie Anderson, Matt Forte, Muhammad Wilkerson, Marcus May, Jamal Adams, who's been up and down. They have Chandler Canzero having one of his better years. And I just think, again, the Jets will play well enough to cause the Broncos to make one more big mistake, or the Jets will make one more big offensive play like they did against Kansas City to improve to 6-7. So that's why I like the New York Jets here in a pick'em and the New York Jets straight up. Next game, the LA Chargers over Washington. The LA Chargers right now, in my opinion, are the third best team in the AFC behind the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots. They have the best pass rushing duo in the NFL. That's Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa. Melvin Gordon can run the ball effectively. He's averaged about 80 to 100 yards this year, and I think he'll continue to play well. Keenan Allen's a phenomenal number 1 receiver, and he's playing like one right now, and that's with the limited other amount of talent that he has around him. No Tyrell Williams often. The only guy that really gets more of an opportunity is Hunter Henry, who's having one of his better years. And this is one of those things with the Chargers. They're playing a Washington team right now at the best time. They're not really wanting to hear about what people think about why Gruden made decisions or why Jay Gruden decided to pull Kirk Cousins out of the starting lineup. I wouldn't have done that. I think Kirk Cousins earned the right to finish that game. And then next week you could talk about what the plan was to do with Kirk Cousins. But I'm going to take the Chargers here because they're the hottest team in the NFL. They're going to win the AFC West. And I just don't have much confidence in the Redskins with their injuries to put up a good enough effort to slow down this Charger lightning bolt of a roll. So that's why I like the LA Chargers here -6 and the LA Chargers straight up. Next game, the Rams over the Eagles. This is my toss-up game of the week. I'm extremely excited for this game. I would not be surprised if Philadelphia wins this game at all, and they should win this game. But I'm going to take the Rams here for two main reasons. One, they're home. They've played sensational at home. They've been in every single one of their games. And I look at the Eagles, and I think it's smart for them to stay on the West Coast, but to basically, if you can get beat by Seattle and then just travel down the Pacific Highway there, the Pacific Highway there, to the LA Rams Stadium, I think it's going to be a fantastic game. It's my game of the week, but I'm just going to trust the Rams here. They're healthier, and they're at home. Healthy and home will triumph over an Eagle team who is still trying to figure out what exactly happened on Sunday night to get beaten that soundly by the Seattle Seahawks. So you have the home field advantage and Zach Ertz's possible head injury. I feel like if he's in the concussion protocol, he will be out, which will be very significant for the LA Rams, and I think the LA Rams will pull off the victory based off of just an unfortunate incident that happened with the 0-4 start. With Seattle. That the Eagles will bounce back after the loss to Seattle. They'll play well, but I think the Rams at home and they're healthier will be enough to power the Rams over to their 10th win of the year and continue having their best record since the 03 season. So that's all I like the LA Chargers here. The LA Rams. Sorry, go ahead. That's all I like the LA Rams here -2 and the LA Rams straight up. The next game, Seattle over the Jaguars. This is a game where Russell Wilson, who's accounted for 29 of the 30 touchdowns the Seahawks have scored, he can't keep doing this, but Russell Wilson keeps getting up every week and continuing to do it, so I'm not going to doubt him. And I think the Seattle defense has one of its better matchups in terms of offense, because all they have to do is basically shut down Leonard Fournette and ask Blake Bortles to throw it on them. I think Blake Bortles can make a couple plays, but definitely this Legion of Boom. However, I'm going to trust Seattle here because they have Russell Wilson at the quarterback, they have Mike Davis at running back, and they have Jimmy Graham at tight end. With that defense, with that experience, I will take that over a Jacksonville team that still has this weird trend that through 13 weeks of the year, in every odd week, the Jaguars have played phenomenal football, dominated, or at least won the football games. And even weeks, it's either nail-biters that shouldn't happen, or they lose outright to move up and then move back after the even week's over. So it is week 14, so the Seahawks should have an edge in that. But I'm going to take the Seahawks because of the quarterback, the experience, and the defense holding up to force Blake Bortles to throw. And I don't think Blake Bortles can throw the Jaguars to victory off his right arm. So that's why I like Seattle here +3 and Seattle straight up. Next game, Pittsburgh over Baltimore. Ryan Shazier's out for Pittsburgh. Jimmy Smith's out for Baltimore. The two best defensive players cancel each other out. So this just goes to offense and home field advantage. I trust the Pittsburgh offense with Le'Veon, with Juju, with Antonio, and with that offensive line to be able to make more plays on the Ravens defense compared to Flacco and the Ravens offense making plays on the depleted Steeler defense. Should be a great game. It's going to be hard-nosed, hard-fought, and I took the Ravens against the spread because I thought that spread was way too much for this kind of game, and in most of these games over the last several years, it's been decided by 3 points or less. So I'm going to stick with that trend and take the Ravens here against the spread, but I think the Steelers are just too highly powered offensively that I don't think the Ravens will be able to match that up. And I don't think we'll cause enough turnovers to get the Steelers to play our way. Even though we lead the league in turnovers with, I believe, 28 total turnovers, which is the most in the NFL. So that's why I like Baltimore here +5, but Pittsburgh straight up. And finally, New England over Miami. Miami's, got blown out here by 21 last year in the last game of the year. This year, just 2 weeks ago, they lost by 17 or 18 to New England. And they don't have Gronk. It won't matter. They'll use Dwayne Allen more. They'll run the ball more effectively. And I just don't have faith in the Dolphins. That Dolphins game talked about more bad Broncos than good Dolphins. Even though congratulations to Kenyon Drake for having his first 100-plus-yard game of his career. And for Jay Cutler only throwing 2 picks and not throwing a pick 6. But against this New England defense, I could definitely see more than 2 picks and at least a pick 6 happening against this defense. So it'll be a kind of a lopsided game. I just want to see if New England can survive the game without injuries to get ready for their huge matchup next week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's why I like New England here -11 and New England straight up. And that's it. So those are my thoughts and picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. If you have any football questions, please put them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from. I love talking to all the fans out there. And please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page, where you see guys like Half Moon's Picks, Billy B of Hatbox Nation, Logan Schiff, Geo Knows, Heath Bailey, TJ Harmon, Bridgewater's Finest, all those guys and gals that do picks just like I do and do a very good job at them, and a lot of them better than me. So, so that's it. So until next time, good luck to all the teams, players, coaches, fantasy players. I know a lot of people are starting their fantasy championships this weekend. My fantasy championships don't start for the next couple weeks, and I feel like I'll make 2 of my leagues. I won't make one, which is the NFL YouTube Prognosticator League. I ended up finishing 7th. But I am going to try to win the consolation bracket for the 2nd year in a row. So, first loser, the most qualified, the MQL, it's the mall call. The most accomplished loser award I will try to achieve for the 2nd year in a row. So, but good luck to all those guys in the Prog League. Good luck to anybody in their fantasy leagues. And good luck to all fellow prognosticators. And until next week, this is Matthew and Fanatic signing off. Until then, so long.